Hello, YouTube. So my name is Cam, and this is Dr. Cindy Brewer. We're here to talk a little bit about homeschooling today, just to give you guys a little bit of our experience. So I'm a teacher, and I have been a teacher for the better half of a decade at this point. And of course, Cindy has homeschooled 5 girls, and so we both have a lot of experience in the education field. And homeschooling is something that a lot of people are thinking about, especially expats to other foreign nations that have very, very different culture and learning systems to what they may be used to back in the U.S. or their home country. So, Dr. Brewer, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to homeschool your 5 girls when you and your husband moved here to Vietnam?
Sure. First of all, maybe I should start with I've been homeschooling for about 17 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually began before we moved to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been interested in homeschooling. We also, had children late in life when our children, later than a lot of young parents, and I really wanted to be hands-on with their learning. When we moved here, that was back in 2008. There weren't a lot of options of international schools or private school options. We decided at that point, our daughters were young then, they ranged in age from 5 to 9, and we moved here as a family. There were so many changes in our life. Everything looked different, smelled different, tasted different.
Look at this shirt.
Everything was new, and our girls were young. I was not prepared to put them in a school, a Vietnamese school. And I also knew at that point that by attending Vietnamese school, in the evening or on weekends or at some other time, I would also need to teach them anyway. I would want them to learn correct English grammar and pronunciation, vocabulary, spelling, handwriting, history. So there were many things, American geography, all of those things were not going to be taught in a Vietnamese school. And so if they were doing that, going to Vietnamese school every day, I would also be requiring them to do even more schooling outside of school hours, and all of this at a time when they are just trying to adjust to moving halfway around the world.
You should be really packing it in.
Yeah, that's right. It's putting a lot, I felt like it would be putting a lot more pressure on them and on me. Mm-hmm. We didn't know anything, so I didn't know even how Vietnamese schools worked, what the discipline was like, what the format and philosophy behind teaching and learning would be. So I didn't know if I wanted to put my 5-year-old and 6, 7, and 9-year-old into that school environment. And so for us, it was, I felt like it was more nurturing for them to be at home. I loved to teach. I loved teaching them. I loved, fixing up a schoolroom and having all kinds of beautiful charts and fun activities and music and art and all those things. I loved doing that. And so to me, it was a happy environment. It was a nurturing environment. I know for sure that when my girls were little, nobody in their class called them stupid. Nobody looked down on them. I have some of my daughters have learning disabilities. They never felt less than because of where they were in school. I don't know that it would have been the same had they been in a, another school environment. There were a couple of international schools when we moved here, but with 5 daughters, the tuition, that becomes really expensive. Yeah. And we're not here with a big, why would I do that when I love teaching them? I loved curriculum. We had a plan. They learned phonics and handwriting and, all of the same subject matter.
Now I have to ask though, okay, what about the argument that some people say if you're gonna live in a foreign country, you should do your best to integrate into the culture and get to know the culture, and by you intentionally keeping your daughters like out of a Vietnamese school, it's kind of like you're rejecting that culture. Oh, them. Some people might say it's better for them to be integrated into that culture, so then they can speak Vietnamese and they'll be able to better adapt to living in Vietnam or whatever country they're in.
Well, a couple things. I can see that, but I don't think the only way to integrate your child into the culture is through school. Our daughters, our oldest daughter in particular, does speak Vietnamese.
Mm-hmm.
She, learned from her friends. We didn't withhold them from social engagement with, Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese neighbors. We wanted them to be involved. They also were very involved with the organization that their dad is the director for,
Mm-hmm.
and which also meant interacting a lot with Vietnamese people. So I don't think that school has to be the place. Sometimes schools are not the best place
Really?
to integrate. Yeah, because it's kids that are sometimes bullies. Sometimes, where does your kid? You probably pick up most of their worst habits or their bad language, their whatever habit is you're going to talk about. Well, most of the time it's at school.
True.
So I don't think that the school has to be the primary integration into the culture. And I would agree, though, that they should, we need to love each other. We need to love the world and all the people in it. And every culture has beautiful and wonderful things to offer. And kids need to be exposed to that just as much as me. I just don't think the school has to be the place.
Were there any legal issues here in Vietnam not having your minor children in school?
No,
Okay.
because since we're not Vietnamese citizens and we weren't looking to the Vietnamese government to provide education, there might have been some if we had them in Vietnamese school, then taken them out, then wanted to put them back. Then,
Okay,
I don't know if that would have run into problems or not, but no, we never had any issues like that.
So most expat families I've seen here do choose either if they can afford an international school or to homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you say that still more and more are very few are putting their children in public school here?
Yes, at least that's my experience.
And can you tell us
I know
why?
a few families that did put their children went through Vietnamese school.
Mm-hmm.
But the most successful of them, that if they wanted their child to return to their home country for college, the one that I know that maybe started Vietnamese school in the 4th grade and went the rest of the way through high school until the last 2 years.
Mm.
And then his parents sent him to a boarding school in the U.S. Because it wasn't that his education was inferior at all, but he had not learned the English terminology for like the elements in chemistry or the math terminology. He knew all the Vietnamese terms for that, but in college they're not going to ask him to solve a chemical equation in Vietnamese. He needs to know the English names of those and the symbols and all of those things, and 100 other things like that. And so I'm not sure, I don't know of anyone who has sent their child to the local school for all their education and then immediately they went straight to their, to a home country for university.
And everything was just honky-dory. And I'll just point out, by the way, that a lot of wealthy families here, local Vietnamese, do not send their kids to public school.
Right.
They send them to private school or a boarding school to prepare them so they can study in university. And I think this is a huge issue for families because your children, that's the most important thing. You want to make sure they're in a good environment that
Right.
you think they're going to have the best chance of succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes, so then there was no legal issues. Were there issues getting curriculum here?
Well, we always tried to have, we would either get the curriculum while we were in the U.S. and bring it back with us, or because we have a charitable organization, we had people coming to visit in teams, and they would bring our curriculum with them. Only once I had the curriculum delivered, that I ordered it and had it shipped. It was very expensive, and just one portion of the curriculum was held up in customs. But it eventually got here, but most of it came right on, but some of it they held up, wanting to see exactly what that was and why we wanted, that many copies of workbooks and things like that.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't. It was far easier to have people bring it in, or for us to bring it if we were, sometimes we didn't go to the U.S. One time it was 3 years, and so that we hadn't been back. And so, I hadn't brought curriculum for the next 3 years, obviously. So somebody had to bring it in, and it was probably during one of those years that I actually had it shipped.
And nowadays, by the way, I mean, you can do it all of it online, so they even need to have, you need the workbooks, I guess.
Yes,
so.
Well, and now there's a lot of curriculum has downloadable, workbooks or that you can then have printed out. When we started, we had all physical books. We didn't. We did have Kindles, but most of their textbooks were not in that format. So we had regular books and workbooks and test books and all those things that we had to get.
Well, so what do you think about the homeschooling style now, where parents are kind of parking their kids in front of the computer all day, and how do you feel about that form of homeschooling, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. Well, that makes me sad. I loved homeschooling because of the interaction that I had with my daughters and the input of the give and take. And I think the teacher is more central to teaching than just someone to monitor a classroom or, check to make sure you did your work. And so I know that, of course, with COVID-19, everything has, changed, and people have to do what they have to do. And I think the online schooling, by Zoom and all those things is better than no schooling at all.
Yeah.
If the school's not going to meet. But as a matter of habit, I think it's much better. The reason I homeschooled was to have that time with my daughters, not to put them in front of a computer screen or in front of a TV screen. At that time we had DVDs, if there was expertise that I couldn't give, especially as they got older, you might need to do that some. But when they're young, I wanted to have that time with them.
So you found that there's never been any issues, and who would you say, as far as with an expat, would you say that it's probably homeschooling would probably be the best option for most families, or especially as an expat here?
Yeah, I really couldn't say what is best. It needs to be a family decision. You need to look at the makeup of your family and what do you want to get out of homeschooling. How old are your children? What is their academic relationship? Do they love learning? Are they fighting you every inch of the way? Are they, what age are they? How's your family set up? Do you get along? Is everything a fight? Can you ask your child to take the trash out and it's okay? Or you ask your child to take the trash out and it's a major, conflict? All of those things need to go into the decision.
And that's anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter
now.
where. And here, what are your what do you think are your educational goals for your children? Where are they headed? What do they dream about? What are their giftings? What, there's not a one size fits all for much of anything in life.
Amen.
And I think that's also true educationally, that you need to consider your family, your children. You need to be hands-on. These children are going to be in your life to nurture, protect, and have that kind of input for just a short time. Then they're going to fly and be out of the nest.
What are some things that a parent should look for when deciding on a curriculum? Or what do you think should they not have? Because I've seen people try and do it for free and not.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there are even online curriculums that are free that are decent, but it doesn't have to be that you have to buy the most expensive curriculum. Mm-hmm. There are some really expensive curriculums that I don't think are particularly good. Again, a lot of it depends on your child's age. If you're just getting started, then you want to look for a curriculum, to me anyway, that is strong in the basics, mm-hmm. In phonics, in reading, in basic math of, your child is going to need to know what numbers are and place value and how to basic addition and subtraction and go on from there. I think you want to, I always looked for a curriculum that was strong in reading, not necessarily them reading, because when they're young they're not reading, mm-hmm. but books, real books, literature, good literature. And we did a lot of reading out loud when the girls were young, of interesting real stories with interesting characters and a real plot, not just see spot run type things, but something that is going to lift them, that's going to excite them about learning, not boring, colorful, interactive things that they're doing. There's so many good programs out there.
Can you recommend a few?
Well, I tell you, one of the things, I'll mention one that I loved, and it's one that many children struggle with: handwriting. They don't like it, they don't have skill with it, their handwriting is terrible, and it's a fight every day to get them to do it. And the name of the curriculum just went out of my head.
We're not sponsored, people.
Yeah, no, we're not sponsored.
They didn't pay for this, that's why she can't remember.
Yeah, that's right. I'll have to look it up. I really did go blank.
We'll put it in the description box, okay?
Yeah, but it's, it was a curriculum that didn't just teach how to write the letters, but that had activities that strengthened the muscles in the child's hands so that they were ready to hold a pencil.
Oh, wow.
It mainly worked on making all the letters with a combination of straight lines and curves. Mm-hmm. So it looked a little different than what we would say traditional printing, because that made it very straight or just with a curve, mm-hmm. But again, it was fun for the child, and you had manipulatives. I really like curriculum that uses things not just a paper and pencil. That can get boring for a child, just everything's on their paper, but things that they build with and that they can see, that they can manipulate with their hands. And many children today are, I think even, I don't know percentage-wise if it's more than before, but many children are visual learners. And if you are only talking all the time, your auditory child is going to love that. Your visual child is going to be bored to tears and isn't going to get half of it. So you need to really choose curriculum that fits your child.
As a teacher, I have to tell you, when I hear parents just saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna download some stuff online," and it's not like a thought out, planned out curriculum. It makes hair stand up on the back of my neck because it's like, I'm not saying. I mean, the children need structure, and if you're just downloading from this free site, and it's not like well thought out plan, I really feel like it's gonna leave the child behind because every curriculum introduces subjects a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it is the same thing, they're introducing them differently. That's why you don't really want to pull your kid from school to school either,
Right.
for that same reason.
Right.
I mean, obviously, if it's not a good fit, but I mean, when it comes to curriculum, and at what point should a parent say, okay, you know what, this curriculum is not working for me? Because another thing I've seen with some parents is, oh, this curriculum is too hard, let's try a new one.
Right.
And that's not good either. So how long do you think they should try and stick out a curriculum that they may not be initially happy with, or just even towards the middle they ran into a rough patch and they're not happy with it?
Well, if you are beginning homeschooling, I would encourage you to do a lot of investigation before you order, even if it delays you by starting for a year. You would be better off, in my opinion, to have really thought it through and know what you're getting. You could still end up with a curriculum that just doesn't fit. It sounded great, it looked great, you looked at their scope and sequence of what they're teaching each year and how it builds on one another, and you can investigate all that and still run into problems. But you're going to have far fewer problems if you have done some homework on it. And I would agree with you that piecemealing, as you get into homeschooling and you've done it for a while, it becomes easier to say, oh, I love this one's history and I love that one's math, and but in the beginning, most curriculums are integrated, their courses are integrated with one another, so they are pulling in what they learned in history into their science. They refer to the same thing. And you can disrupt all that by saying, oh, I'm going to do, this one and that one. And also, if you are not particularly organized as a homeschooler, you are making things more difficult for yourself to keep up with all these different curriculums. And, you can even get curriculums or get in with a curriculum company or an online school that keeps records for you, that does tests and keeps their scores, or you can do that yourself, but you need to know what you're getting into.
I think the bottom line is, parents, if you are considering homeschooling, I've worked with lots of people who do homeschooling. I mean, you cannot be lazy about this.
Right.
It's not just, I'm going to have them just do a couple of hours a day, and no. I mean, you are taking the place of the school. So everything that a school, they have administrations for, they have 4 or 5 different teachers for, that's gonna fall on your shoulders. So that's why homeschooling may not be the good choice for everybody. And this just comes from my heart. You really need to have a spirit for teaching if you're gonna be successful at this. Because you could be well-meaning, you love your child, but if you just don't have that spirit for teaching, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. And that's why my heart just breaks when I think about this generation of COVID kids who have been, the parents are parking them in front of a computer all day, and it's just like, it's not the same.
Right.
And so, all right, well, is there anything else you want to talk about for Vietnam specifically?
No, I just would like to say a word to parents. If you're considering homeschooling, don't be afraid. It can be a wonderful experience. I loved homeschooling. That doesn't mean I loved every minute of every day. Some of it was difficult. It was time consuming. It has its own challenges, but I don't regret it. And it can be a great choice for your family. Don't feel that you can't do it. You can, but you do have responsibility. If you're going to do it, like Cameron was referring to, if you're going to do it, really give yourself to it and to your children. You know, make it, do it the very best you can.
It's not just, oh, let's just see how it goes. If like we can get this, because if you just kind of wing it and you're not doing it, I mean, then your child could be like a year behind.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, it takes planning, preparation, prayer, and it's something that should be, like Cindy was saying, a well thought out decision. And so otherwise, you'd probably be better off just putting them in an international school if you can afford it, or just doing something else.
Yeah.
If you're not going to put your all into it.
Yeah.
So
There's a way, if it's your heart's desire to teach your children, there's a way to do it. I really do believe that, and there is help. There is, there's great curriculum. There are great video lessons online that you can watch with your children, not put them, not leave them in the room, and especially young children. There are so many wonderful activities that go along with the reading and writing and arithmetic. You can do it, but you need to come at it seriously, and that it's a real commitment on your part. And think about, what is the very best for your children? What's the very best you can offer to your child?
Amen. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything we need to talk about for people in Vietnam or abroad who are homeschooling. So thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.